Marxist elements within that whole group of permanent bureaucracy denizens, the swamp creatures. And reporting on this is, of course, Ben Shields, and he had something called therightmedia.org, therightmedia.org. Let me know when he's on. Just give me a thumbs up. And when he does come on, we're going to be asking him about the exculpatory evidence with respect to the Mueller investigation, asking him about what's taking place with respect to the Gates Manafort indictments and such. We do have our guest, Ben Shields, as I said, the man behind therightmedia.org, and on Twitter at Ben's Politics. Ben Shields, welcome to the Hagmann Report.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you.
It's great to be on.
You've done some amazing work in reporting on the Mueller investigation, what this is, and even more importantly, the corruption within the Department of Justice and the FBI, the fact that none of this is really making the Mockingbird media, the mainstream news. Where do you want to start? Because your latest piece from a couple of days ago, Flynn judge asked Mueller for exculpatory evidence. Man, if this is not part of the most important news of the day, I don't know what is. The perversion of the FISA process, all of this. So where do you want to start?
Well, that's the thing, is there's so many investigations that Mueller's taken over. Like, you have Michael Flynn, then you have Paul Manafort and Rick Gates. There's the whole FISA memo issue. Like, it's pretty crazy to think about how many different things Mueller has his foot in. And there's not really a whole lot to any of it. Like, even the Gates and Manafort situation, new indictments came out yesterday, I think. And it just, the whole point of the Mueller investigation was Russian interference or Russian collusion, really.
Right.
And in all of these indictments, there's just no proof of that. Like, he's indicting them for things like bank fraud and tax evasion that aren't even related to Trump. It's not related to the election or his campaign or anything. So it makes you wonder what's going on, you know?
Exactly. And there's not one violation of 52 USC 30121, which is the electioneering charge, election interference. There's not one charge of that statute in all of these indictments. And now we're seeing, of course, as you point out, the exculpatory evidence pursuant to the Brady Rule being withheld in the Flynn indictment. Perhaps the plea, perhaps up in the air on this. In any other time in history, this would be front page news all of the time, but it's not.
Oh, yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. It's really sad to see, because when you think about especially like the first charges against Manafort and Gates, it was the statute that he charged them with. The core of the charges was basically, I mean, it was something that was put on the books back in World War II, hasn't been amended since 1966. And it basically means if you talked to a foreign entity, they can charge you for that. And that's what he used. And I don't know. I mean, he's found a lot more since then. And I put out in a video today, the new charges, I think they're really hard to dispute because I read through Mueller's new indictment on them.
Okay.
And as long as the numbers aren't fudged, I don't think that Manafort and Gates are getting out of this scot-free. But Flynn, on the other hand, I mean, exculpatory evidence, like, they don't usually ask for that, especially, like, the really weird thing is that the Flynn team didn't even ask for that evidence. So the judge just said, turn this over to us. So that's a good sign right there.
It is a good sign. And do you think that when we have special counsels, isn't there supposed to be an underlying crime as the reason that these special counsels are impaneled? And
yeah,
I don't think that's the case here. How did they get around this?
Well, I think I gave this a lot of thought. I think that they set up the system almost perfectly. Like, they had people in all of the right places that they needed. Like, they had the FBI officials that, slip some of this stuff through. They had the Department of Justice officials that would slip this stuff through. You had Eric Holder as the Attorney General, who was passing legislation to take power away from the Inspector General. It's just they put
administratively
people in the right place.
You're talking about now. It's
Yeah,
clear.
yeah,
Administrative measures. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yes. So
okay.
It made it so that the inspector general had to go through the attorney general to get a warrant for any evidence or anything. Now, I mean, that was Eric Holder, though, when he saw that Horowitz was going in. And I really think that the inspector general report is going to be a fireworks show, because I don't think that Horowitz is part of the swamp. And I know that might be a bold statement to make, but I don't think that he is.
I'm right there with you on that. And thank you. You're one of a few people who has actually said that. And I'm interested because anytime I speak about the IG report that's coming out, March, right? Middle of March, it's expected?
Yeah, I think it's around there.
Okay. You know, I always get people who email me and say, well, he's part of the swamp. He's an Obama, he's elected by Obama or appointed by Obama. What changed, if anything, with Michael Horowitz, and what lit the fire under Horowitz's butt or allowed him perhaps to do what he's doing with respect to the IG report, the IG investigation?
Well, I think that, okay, so there have been a lot of corrupt people that have come through. I think it's the Southern District of New York justice system, or the court there. And Horowitz is one of them. I mean, I think it was Eric Holder who gave him his first job. And Robert Mueller and James Comey were so intertwined with Horowitz and Holder going up through the years. And I don't think that Horowitz was ever really, I think he was pretty much playing their game the whole time. And I could be wrong on that, but I haven't seen evidence to show that I'm wrong on that. I haven't seen the swamp activity from Horowitz that you see from someone like Holder, or Mueller or Comey or any of them, really. But if you really listen to some of the things that Horowitz talks about from years ago, he has a very good sense for the rule of law. And I don't think that he's really I think he's just like when people hear about Horowitz and they think that he's swamp, they look at connections to Horowitz and they make those connections as if he's swamp or as if he's that person. And I think that that's a mistake, because to get to the position that he's at, you have to play the system to a degree. I think that that's what Horowitz has done.
It's a very good. Thank you for laying that out that way. Because my take is relatively the same, is pretty much the same as yours. When you follow the career path, you see that area of politics, but and the relationship at the time, but it's at the periphery. So I agree with that. Okay. Wow, I'm looking at a table of just really headlines and different aspects of the same story. What
about Jeff Sessions?
Yeah,
and then from here, I'd like to go to the Uranium One thing and Robert Mueller's role in Uranium One. But what do you think of Jeff Sessions? What's going on with him?
Okay, so Jeff Sessions, it's funny that you say Jeff Sessions and move into Uranium One, because they're basically intertwined. So Jeff Sessions, I always wondered why people thought he was swamp. I didn't really bother. I did, researching him. I kind of just I would hear some news headlines about him and I'd be like, okay, well, whatever. He's he's Jeff Sessions. But then looking into Uranium One and really getting into Gulf Tainer and how Hillary Clinton played into everything and the Y-12 facility, you find out that the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee had to approve some of that uranium transfer. And some of that, I think, went through Mobile, Alabama. And Jeff Sessions was down in Alabama at the time. So he was on the Senate. He was a senator there, and he had to approve some of this. So I think that he recused himself. And I think that a lot of what he's done has been to cover for some other people in the Uranium One scandal. Now, I think that that's really just because he doesn't want it to get out that, him and John McCain and, oh God, I don't know, so many other senators in Wyoming, Utah, the other one in Arizona, Colorado, they're all connected to this, and they all had to have a hand in this Uranium One thing. And I think that that's where Sessions is swamp.
And if you don't mind, because many people might not know the entire story of Uranium One. Of course, Peter Schweitzer lays this out in Clinton Cash, at least the basis for Uranium One, and how it all started in Kazakhstan back in 2005, at least in earnest, and how it really transcended a number of presidential administrations. Can you give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of Uranium One as it relates to what's going on today? And you mentioned Gulf Tainer and other things. Maybe people don't really understand the scope of the Uranium One deal.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to lay it out as best as I can. So let's see. We'll start. Okay, so 2005 is when I believe it was 10X. It was a subsidiary of Rosatom. Got into mines in Kazakhstan. But then in 2008, you had George Bush, who was looking to sell uranium, and he was going to give it to the Russians. Now, what ended up happening with that is that the whole deal was set. Like the deal that Obama signed in 2010 to give uranium to the Russians was that was delayed a little bit, because in 2008 George Bush was going to sign that, but then Georgia bombed South Ossetia, which is it's a border city between Russia and Georgia, and then the whole deal was called off, and then Obama came in, and then by 2010 the deal was signed. Now, people often forget too that there were two tarmac meetings that are pretty significant and connected to the Clintons. You had the one in June of 2016 with Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton, obviously. And that was discussing Hillary's email scandal, where Loretta Lynch, passed judgment off to James Comey. James Comey said no charges. The second important tarmac meeting was in June of 2000, it was in 2009. And that was when Robert Mueller met with Russian officials to give them 10 grams of highly enriched uranium. And this was in 2009. This wasn't made public by WikiLeaks, showing that this wasn't supposed to get out. Like this was supposed to all be secret. And then also in 2009, and it didn't again come out until much later, you had Mark Lambert, who was recently, or I shouldn't say recently, it was like a month or so ago, he was indicted. And he bribed 10X. He bribed 10X officials, and 10X is a subsidiary of Rosatom, which is the state-owned Russian nuclear company. So it's all part of Uranium One, to people that might not know that. So Lambert he bribed 10X back in 2009 so that his Maryland-based transportation company would be able to transport uranium for them in the States. And then through this, Mark Lambert kind of got tied in with the whole scandal and with the Clintons. And then that's how we get into Gulf Tainers, when Lambert was shipping it out to the ports. Then at the ports, especially like Port Canaveral is the Gulf Tainer scandal, like where it really started. And you have uranium there. And honestly, I don't think it was just uranium. I believe that there were probably arms as well. I don't have proof for that, but the people, like, there are connections. Yeah, there are connections to make you think. Like, they weren't just shipping uranium out of those shipping containers. And Gulf Tainer USA it's the shipping company in Port Canaveral, and it's a national security hub. Well, you have these people from the Middle East who have interests in the Middle East that now have access to this port because of Hillary Clinton. And I forget exactly what it was that she signed, but it was like a Port Canaveral lease. Right. And she played a big role in that. So to try to paint the full picture, it's like you have Russia basically Russia bringing in uranium that's weapons grade uranium, but it's from warheads from like the 70s and the 80s. And they're bringing it in.
That's megatons to megawatts, that yes. program.
Yes.
And I don't, allow me to interrupt and interject one thing here. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Obama being part of the Lugar Commission on that megatons to megawatts, being part, as a junior senator from Illinois? I thought this was rather strange. Obama was part of the commission to decommission the warheads over in Russia, or to monitor that process.